Hi, Alexa. Good morning.
Morning, Justine. See you.
Yeah, you too. It's so good to see you. So I just wanted to take the opportunity to have a conversation with you about your plant path and what you have to offer, so that people in our online community can get to know you and be in touch with you, and so that you can just kind of share your offerings with them. So I would love to hear from you how you got started on your herbal path, kind of what inspired you, what your story is, and then anything you want people to know about what you have to offer, and yeah, how you ended up coming to the Herbalist Collaborative.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So my herbal path, I think it starts back even before I was born, to be honest, because my parents brought me into the world with the help of a naturopath, like because they were working with a naturopath and with homeopathics. And and I won't share too much about that, but and then I work with that naturopath, um, you know, right after I was born and so on. And I grew up in the holistic space in many ways, like trying different therapies, mostly because of my mom, trying different herbs, and sometimes being really annoyed that I had to take all of these, plant medicines and supplements and have, because we had food sensitivities, we couldn't, eat the food that other kids were eating necessarily at camp and school and so on. And my mom wouldn't buy organic food. So back then it was still very, very fringe. Now this is all mainstream, but that's the way that I grew up with that influence. And herbs were very much a part of my life, but I wasn't so aware of what they could do fully in a way because I was so immersed in it and it was just part of my childhood. And then on the other side of things, I was very connected to nature, always from a young age. I remember like some of my most fond memories were just going to my cottage and sitting with the trees, alone. I'd go sit with the pine trees or sit in the marsh by our cottage. And basically, I was kind of meditating with the plants, but I didn't know that then. That I would spend hours doing, out in nature, uh, communing with plants. And that really shaped a lot of my childhood. I was kind of a fragile child, like in terms of my immune system and so on. So, um, I did rely a lot on my mom and my grandmother, taking care of me and nurturing me with all of these herbs and really good food and so on. And then later on, I I ended up having some health problems. So I actually got a couple concussions in my teens, and that had different, neurological effects, and also kind of brought about some depression that I went through for a long time, and and then for a period I got into yoga and meditation, and I changed my whole lifestyle because I really wanted to like take charge of my health and um, really just not even take charge, but take care of my body and my mind a bit better, and um, be able to feel more stable. And so that all of that kind of was a gateway into like herbalism. But then what really opened the doors to it were probably two things. One was after university, I apprenticed with a biodynamic farmer and like horticulturalist who's quite well known in the UK, and did that for about a year with my now husband and someone else. And I learned a lot from him about how to grow plants, like grow food, as well as certain medicinal plants and also wildcraft medicinal plants, like, for example, nettle and hawthorn and so on. So, yeah, that was pretty life-changing, pretty foundational for me. And I'm now actually a master gardener. And so all of that, it definitely affected me, affected where I am now. And then after that, I ended up getting, just coincidentally, it was a stroke of bad luck that I got infected with tick-borne diseases. And I became chronically ill even after taking antibiotics. So I was sick for many, many years. And I then actively turned to herbalism. And I read a lot about, I read herb books, and I read different herbal protocols, or found them in those herb books, such as Buehner's for um, managing and treating tick-borne diseases, including Lyme disease. And also I grew herbs and started making herbal products. And I became really into that, and I still am. Although I can't grow herbs where I am now because I'm living in an apartment right now and I don't have that land. So that experience of being ill and having to manage my own condition, basically, because a lot of doctors and a lot of providers in general weren't very Lyme literate, especially where I was. And this was, over 5 years ago in Canada. So I was really learning from my community and from the internet, from books and different herbalists, and from the plants themselves, just through trial and error, seeing what could work, what worked in my own system. It really is different for everyone. And then I realized, oh, it could be a vocation, because I loved it so much, and obviously still love it. So I started studying it more actively, and now I'm actually in remission from tick-borne diseases, and the herbs definitely played a big part in that. So yeah, that's a lot of my plant path story.
That's amazing. I would love also for you to share about, just if you don't mind, your education and what you're studying and what you're intending to do once you're done with school.
Yeah, for sure. So I've like carved out a bit of a quirky niche for myself in terms of my educational path or background, and where I want to take it. So right now I'm doing a master's in public mental health specifically, and I've created that as my own concentration at my public health school, and I'm in Rhode Island right now doing that. And so part of the reason I am in public health or studying public health is because I want to have more of like a systems level impact on healthcare, as well as academia, and just all, like, when we say public health, it means so many things. It doesn't just mean like epidemiology or vaccines or something like that. Like it means, we talk about social determinants of health. So that's like basically life itself. It's like anything that impacts our health, or like our body, minds, right? And so I really wanted to become a stronger and better advocate for like patients, or basically anyone who's been affected by illness or disability, a mental illness, and so on. Because I feel like a lot of the time, these communities and these individuals are dismissed, as many of us know, dismissed by different healthcare providers, by the scientific community at large, and to criticize or even humiliated, right? And just generally not taken care of the way we should be taken care of, and taken seriously. So yeah, want to be a better advocate, and that's why at school I started this organization called Disability Justice as Public Health, and we've actually had quite a big impact in the time we've been around, in terms of like running different speakers panels and making our own public health school more accessible, and the campus more accessible, and just supporting disabled students. Yeah, and then another reason I want to get into it is because I want to really bridge like mainstream and holistic healing traditions. And that's kind of the story of my life in many ways, because I realize it's not one or the other. You know, I've experienced both ends of the spectrum, and they're not really complete on their own in many ways. Like I like an integrative approach. I've also really benefited from integrative medicine in terms of like my own health journey. And I would really like to take an integrative approach to mental health specifically, and maybe even in the future start integrative mental health center, which is very like affordable and accessible and patient-centered, using like non-coercive approaches to mental health care, and also using different like justice movement principles, so like disability justice, racial justice, and restorative justice, and so on in the practice. So people feel very like as safe as possible and comfortable being there. It's very, you know, there can be peer support systems, there can be acupuncture, there can be integrative psychiatrist or doctor, and so on, and everyone's working together. And so those are some, yeah, those are some of the reasons why I'm doing this. And then I actually didn't even talk about my herbal education. So alongside all that, I'm working my way towards becoming a clinical herbalist through Wild Rose College in Canada, doing that remotely. And then sometimes I will be doing this more, especially when I graduate. I'll go out and do intensives with them to get all my clinical hours that I need to become a sort of like a registered clinical herbalist in Canada. So yeah, it does take some time, and I've already, you know, done different programs, and I have other experience under my belt, but yeah, I'm now at the level where I'm working towards being a clinical herbalist, so I can do all the things I talk about and make a bigger impact.
That's amazing. I feel so proud listening to you that you're just kind of like, yeah, charting this path, and like so much of it just comes from your own life experience. And I think it's so powerful when you have the life experience to help people, you know, like coming from that place of being able to relate to people and going through it. And on that note, I would love to hear more about, if you're comfortable sharing to any extent about your experience with Lyme. And yeah, just is that something that you want to specialize in? I'm curious.
Yeah, that's a really good question. And I mean, there's so much I can say about Lyme and tick-borne diseases, like going through it and, you know, treating it, whether you're a patient or your practitioner, and also preventing like contracting these diseases, because, you know, the whole public should become more aware of that, especially where we are right now in New England. I noticed recently, for anyone watching, Justine and I were, I think it was in May, at the International Herb Symposium, right, in Massachusetts. And I noticed there was such a focus on Lyme, and there were patients there who were desperate to learn, or people with Lyme, and people sharing about their stories. And then so many herbalists had a wealth of knowledge about Lyme, and I was learning from them as well. But I noticed herbalists have been filling a gap in like this whole, because of the absence or the lack of like adequate knowledge about Lyme and other tick-borne diseases within the mainstream medical community. Like herbalists have stepped in, and they've been filling that gap and treating people. And so I would like to in the future become more competent and potentially like Lyme literate practitioner to be able to treat, you know, or take care of people and support people's health in that way as well. Right now, I feel like I am still a bit like fresh out of the experience. To be honest, it is a very debilitating illness. It can be very complex because it involves so many physiological systems, including like neurological functioning, as well as like neuropsychiatric. So a lot of people do have psychiatric or psychological symptoms directly, like primary symptoms, as well as secondary, because it is kind of traumatic having this chronic illness, which many people describe as being like tortured day in, day out. And then also not having your family or community be able to easily relate to those experiences, and getting enough of the support you need, as well as treatment can be very expensive. Like, yeah, that's a whole other
Yeah.
can of worms that, could open up, but I won't here. And yeah, there's just so many issues with Lyme that I really hope are sorted out soon. I think there is more funding that's going into it, thankfully, and more research is being done. Different universities like Johns Hopkins, Duke, Harvard, Columbia, and so on. So, and the US government's funding different like Lyme incubators for companies looking to create more treatments and even a vaccine and different more accurate testing. So hopefully in the next 5 years, we'll see a lot of advancements with it. In the meantime, I'm sure a lot of herbalists will keep treating these like limeys. And right now I'm not going to focus on that area. But maybe I will more in the future.
Yeah. Yeah, especially as we hear more and more about it. It's just, I have had personal experiences myself and family members that have been hospitalized due to tick-borne illness. So it's like so serious and it seems to be on the rise. So I think that's a great specialty to have. But yeah, so what are you currently offering, would you say, if you wanted to introduce that to the community, the online community?
Sure. Yeah, what I do focus on is actually providing mental and emotional support to all sorts of folks. I really like working with people who are more nonconformists or who maybe have been structurally marginalized. So maybe they're not able-bodied, so they might be like chronically ill, disabled, mentally ill, or self-identify as mad, or have been called mad by other people, or so on. Or people who've been who are racialized, or maybe low income, and the queer folks, and yeah. So I like supporting all sorts of people with those types of identities, as well as like intersections of those identities with their mental and emotional health or wellness, and also people who are doing movement work, so of whatever form, because I know, that can be very demanding. I've been involved in different types of movement work and still am, and it can be very demanding, as well as self-sacrificing experience. Unfortunately, we expect a lot out of people, to give themselves continuously, because capitalism has affected that movement work as well, or organizing work. And yeah, what should be more built into movement work is like R&R time, right? Like so that the movement can be sustainable. So I'm here to help sustain that work, and support the people who are doing that important work towards collective liberation for the rest of society, especially as we're now slowly starting to watch the world burn more. I think it's, I don't want to bring that up and make this too, too dire, but it is the reality. And I've been aware of it for years, especially because I've been so connected to nature. And so, yeah. So I'm here. If I'm describing you or someone then then you can send them my way if you like. And specifically, what I offer is our herbal consultations, and you can see those on my site as well. I do have an initial consultation there, as well as follow-ups, and I do all sliding scale pricing as well, and that's on there. And then also I do flower essence therapy, and I'm trained as a Bach Foundation registered practitioner, so I'm trained in the Bach system, flower essence system. I have more info on what that is on my site. But yeah, I actually use all sorts of flower essences or work with different flower essences, so I'm not limited to that system. And what else do I have? So I have a course actually, and it's called the Inner Sanctum. And it is a Notion-based self-paced course for people who've experienced certain type of trauma and may identify as survivors, and might help people who've gone through those experiences to process them at their own pace and to move forward, as well as explore who they are more deeply and connect to to plants, to the plant realm and to elements. And then I have more like, it's called the Golden Scars, and it is a longer one-to-one program with me, and it's a customized program. Essentially, it's generally runs over 12 weeks, and it's basically a program to help you reset your nervous system and connect more to the plant realm. That's a theme throughout all of my work,
Yeah.
and on different levels. So we work on physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual health or well-being. And yeah, I am quite a spiritual person. So if you are that doesn't resonate with you, then maybe I'm not the right practitioner for you. And not that I'm very much open to what people are doing in their own lives, whether they're practicing the religion or different types of spiritual practices. I very much go with the flow of what you do and what your life looks like. And even I really encourage my clients to define what health means to them, and their own goals and so on, because it looks different to every person. And don't let me or the wellness industry or doctors define that for you. I think it's very empowering when people do that themselves, and because often that power is taken away from us, but as I've experienced. But it's not just the absence of symptoms, right? It can be you want to feel a bit more energized, or sleep a little better, or feel more comfortable in your skin, or so on and so forth. So yeah.
Absolutely. That's beautiful. Congratulations on your courses. I didn't even realize you were doing that, but that sounds wonderful and like such deep and important work. So bravo. What else? I wanted to see what your experience was like in the Herbalist Collaborative, if you care to share about that.
Yeah, 100%. So I was part of the first cohort of the Herbalist Collaborative, and that was last year. And yeah, I'm so glad it all just really lined up for me. It was like fate or something, because I spoke to, I think some of you in the community might know Mary Blue, herbalist in Rhode Island, and I did an herbal education like free consult with her. And I was like, I have this educational experience in herbalism, and I reached a kind of intermediate level, maybe, as well as some immersive experience with my local herbalist, doing some programs with her at her farm. But I really wanted to be more connected to an herbal community or herbalist community, and just learn together and share knowledge, so that and also work on cases, right? So that I could really grow that clinical experience that I didn't quite have yet, especially in herbalism. I had some in flower essence therapy. So Mary Blue said, oh, well, one of my former employees and Justine has started this collaborative. You should definitely check it out. And so then I applied. I'm really glad that I did, because it just so happened that I was anyway also looking at a public health school in Rhode Island, and most of that the collaborative members were based or in Massachusetts and Rhode Island. And so I was anyway starting to form a community in that area from Canada, because it was all remote at the time, and it still is actually. So that was wonderful. That was one part of it. And now I know that I have some community around in person as well, and can connect with them remotely through this collaborative and rejoin anytime. Because right now I'm not a part of it, but I hope to join again in the future when my master's is over. So some reasons why I really liked it were being able to, like I said, take my cases, like my clinical cases, to the group and get their advice on them. And it was the depth of wisdom and guidance that was there is just unlike what I could have come up with on my own, like given my own experience and so on. I'm quite intuitive. I felt like I had a fairly good understanding, but it's nothing like when you have, put all of our heads together and all of our hearts together and so on. So that was a really enriching part of it. And then another part was definitely because, as I said, I'm intuitive, and having the meditation part, because Justine would facilitate these different types of like meditations and opening and closing practices and so on. And yeah, meditations on different plants of the month. So, and we would sense them, like sense everything about them in terms of like taste and touch and smell and so on. And that really lined up with her approach, which is to do with herbal energetics, which I wasn't as knowledgeable about, especially at the time. So I dipped my toes in that area, more than dip my toes, and I feel like really strengthened that ability within myself that I still have to this day, even though I haven't been a part of the collaboratives since January or February this year, because that's when the cohort ended for me. And what else? And yeah, just getting some more advice on the practicalities of like running an herbal business and wanting to do this professionally, like hopefully not just as a side job, but really throwing myself into it. I was able to get some good advice on being, doing that in a sustainable way, and even on my website and offerings and so on. And so I'm just more confident as a practitioner now. So thank you, Justine.
Thank you. That's so nice to hear. I'm so glad we were so happy to have you and still have you as part of our community. And yeah, I'm just so honored to be able to work with you. You're doing such amazing, needed work, and this has been such a pleasure. If there's anything else that you want to share, now's the time. But otherwise, I just thank you for taking the time to chat with me, and I look forward to just seeing where your path leads you. And I'm just so impressed with all that you're doing, and yeah, you're awesome.
Yeah, well, likewise, I'm very impressed with you, all that you are, not just what you do, but your presence as well and everything. And I think I've shared a lot. Yeah, and if anyone wants to visit my website, I'm sure they can read a lot more about me and what I do, what I offer. So this has been really lovely, and I'm looking forward to the Gather conference as well and supporting that however I can. So thanks very much, Justine.
So exciting. All right, take care.
Bye, you too.